Welcome back to Killer Shrew Fan's Spectacular Toy Reviews. As a little background about myself, I've been a collector all my life. It started with dinosaurs before gradually transitioning to dragons, then to Legos and Bionicles. Yeah, I was one of those kids. To old horror movies and creature features, Halloween masks, and first edition horror novels, before I eventually made my way back to dinosaurs. Oh yeah, it's come full circle. But if I ever decided to stop with dinosaurs and start over again, something I would love to have is a very eclectic cabinet of curiosities. The idea of having my own miniature museum of curious art and oddities gathered from a storied life has always appealed to me, thanks in large part to The Bleak House of Guillermo del Toro, one of my all-time favorite filmmakers. Needless to say, when REBOR revealed their plans to release such a macabre piece as a dissected dinosaur specimen, I was pretty excited by the idea. It combined my love for dinosaurs with my fascination for all things odd, and I think photos like these perfectly illustrate the potential for some very one-of-a-kind displays and collections. I only recently got around to picking up the limited edition Gothic variant, and felt it would be the perfect subject for an episode of Killer Shrew Fan's Spectacular Toy Reviews. So without further ado, let's get into it. First and foremost, we do have a special box for this unique release from REBOR. Rather than the standard black box, REBOR have created a faux Victorian-style encyclopedia done in a red coloration with gold trim. Unfortunately, mine arrived damaged on one side, which does somewhat deflate the illusion. The spine reads Vertebrate Anatomy, Dinosauria, REBOR Oddities, Volume 2, suggesting this being the second variant and the standard edition being Volume 1. So yes, a wonderful departure from the norm with this box that ties into the whole Victorian-style oddity collection vibe. You could probably incorporate this into your own curiosity display somehow, maybe not as a centerpiece, but certainly as a riser or something to stack other items on. It'd probably fit right in that regard. But getting into the product itself, there you can see the full Dissected Compsognathus, complete with a glass sliding display case. I think the perfect word to describe this piece is unique. Not only is it very large, but between its very ornate presentation and macabre subject matter, I have no doubt that this would make for a great conversation piece in any collection of dinosaurs or oddities, or both. Getting into the specifics of the piece, I'll start by giving a brief overview of the included display case. I don't know much about woodwork, Nick Offerman forgive me, but the fact that this is an actual wooden display case is awesome. You can see that the Gothic edition features an appropriately dark stained finish, and the bottom has a little golden placard reading Compsognathus longipes. I mean, it's not a legit engraved placard or anything, but it does help sell the overall look. The front of the display case can be opened by sliding the framed glass up and out to get your figure, and reinstalling it is a simple matter of sliding it into the carved runners of the main piece. There's an attached metal hanger within the case, and installing your compy is a simple matter of hanging it by its armpits from that hook, so it looks as though it's been crucified in the box for dissection. So yes, a very high quality display case that could almost be enough on its own to justify the price tag. It always amazes me how cheap REBOR stuff is when you consider just what it is you're getting. And I got it on sale too, so it was an even greater steal for me. I think the only way it could have been improved would be with some sort of halo light above the figure to better illuminate it. Of course, that might derail the Victorian Gothic vibes if it were all lit up, and I could probably do that myself if I'd ever decided it was something I truly wanted, but yeah, that's the display case, and the dinosaur is just as impressive. I recently unboxed one of REBOR's earlier compies and felt it was a pretty lukewarm recreation of the Lost World counterpart. Here, however, you can see they have nailed it. They've captured the slightly upturned snout, and the scalework and wrinkles in the neck and throat are impeccably sculpted. You can see that the eye is done in a jet black with a high level of gloss to give it a very lively, glistening look. And if we look at the top of the head, you can see that we do have a variation in scale detail, with larger ones over the brows and a gradual decreasing in size as we head down the snoot. And that's about all there is to the head of this piece. Well sculpted, screen accurate, just an all-around good job up here. Of course, the real center of attention with this sculpt would be the revealed internal anatomy. Just above the base of the neck, you can see the animal has been sliced open in a single line that continues down to just past the cloaca. Clearly captured, you have got the trachea feeding down into the veined and wrinkled deflated lungs. Love how those things look. Very believable. Framing the segmented pale heart above the massive liver, which sits just atop the gizzard, pancreas, and gallbladder. You can even see the ischium and pubic boot poking out of the mound of the small intestine as we reach the muscles that form the cloaca. REBOR have also rendered the walls of the cut in a very uneven manner, and you can even see little holes where the ribs were surgically removed to reveal the organs. All of this has then been covered in a high gloss that gives it that slimy, off-putting look. I'm actually pretty squeamish, and this is hard for me to look at for an extended period of time, so well done, REBOR. Obviously, the colors aren't what you would expect. It is a very alien palette, but I'm just glad I don't have the more realistic, bloody version. That might be a little hard for me to stomach. If you're at all curious about what organ is what, REBOR has included a little diagram on stained paper which clearly labels each aspect of the sculpt. Weirdly enough, I've had to try my own hand at sculpting internal anatomy, and it is no easy feat creating something so intricate and well documented. So hats off to REBOR for doing such a believable job here. Now, I know what you're thinking. Killer Shrew fan, how could we possibly know the internal anatomy of Compsognathus? And you're right, we can't, not precisely anyway, but I believe I read a comment from REBOR saying they referenced the internal anatomy of modern-day theropods, aka birds, and used that as a rudimentary point of reference. Now, I am no expert on the anatomy of birds, so I would have to rely on someone else to tell me how accurate they got it, but for a layman like myself, I think it looks believable and objectively well done. As far as the rest of the sculpt goes, you have got some nice muscle tones in the shoulders and arms of the figure. As you can see, the palms of the hands have been sculpted in and the claws are painted a dark gray. The anatomy of the thighs as they spread away from the body has been addressed, and you can see you have got some lovely folding skin at the kneecap of the animal hanging above the bulging calf muscle as we move down into the long, gracile ankles of the figure where we see subtle plate scaling along the backs of the toes, again featuring those gray nails. If we remove the figure from its hooks and take a look at the flanks, you can see that the scaling detail stops just past the head and gives way to a leathery skin texture. I already talked about how the bags of skin around the throat look great, and you can see some more great bunching up of the skin at the shoulder there. Just past the shoulder blade, you can see an indication of what remains of the rib cage, again adorned in that leathery skin. If you direct your attention to the walls of the incision, you can see where all the skin is sort of folding in on itself after the animal was cut open. The detail is basically the same on the opposite side of the figure, with the wrinkles and striations making up a majority of the surface texture. If we look at the figure from a dorsal view, you can see an indication of the raised spinal column along with the gray stripes that run down the length of the entire neck, back, and tail of the animal. The tail itself is sculpted curled in a hard U shape up and around the figure so that it can fit in the box, and the wrinkle, striation, and skin fold texture continues all the way down to the tip. And speaking in terms of the coloration, the Compy is a very desaturated tone of bluish gray broken up by those gray stripes. Meanwhile, the organs are a mix of flesh tones, blues, and greens. As I said before, this coloration feels very alien, yet none of it ever seems to clash with the rest of the color scheme, resulting in a cohesive overall presentation when displayed in the case. I have a hard time picturing this thing with red, bloody organs given the sort of duller tones incorporated on the rest of the animal. But if it's a little bit too monochromatic for you, the other variant, the standard edition, comes in the more traditional Lost World colors, but for such a unique piece, I wanted a unique paint job and not something straight out of a movie. And that's about all I can say about this dissected Compy. Both the display case and dinosaur itself look really cool on their own, and when you put them together, you get this truly one-of-a-kind display piece that would look great in any curio cabinet or bookshelf alongside any other oddity your heart desires. As far as the size of the piece goes, it is quite large when in the case, coming in at 12 inches off the ground or around 30.5 centimeters, while measuring just past 8.25 inches wide or around 21 centimeters and about 2.5 inches or 6.5 centimeters deep. So yes, this thing is essentially the size of an encyclopedia. For a size comparison, I was kind of at a loss as to what, if anything, I could compare this thing to. It truly is completely different from anything else in my collection. But for the heck of it, here it is with the Compsognathus. It's one of the few other compies in my collection, but I hope it can give you an idea of what you can expect for the size of this display piece. I'll also go ahead and bring in their original Compsognathus Sentry, and this works to show you just how far REBOR have come in their sculpting skills. The first one was a pretty rudimentary take that captured the broadest elements of the design, but years later and on a much larger canvas, you can see how much REBOR have improved. And that was the REBOR Oddity Preserved Compsognathus Dissection Specimen. I truly do think this is a special piece. Not necessarily because it's better than everything else per se, but because it is genuinely different. There are literally countless numbers of dinosaur toys and models on the market, both scientific and movie inspired. But in all my years of collecting, I don't think I have ever seen a dinosaur dissection figure. The only other example that comes to mind would be the Mattel T-Rex anatomy toy, whatever that was called, but that's it. If you're looking for something a little weird for your collection, then look no further. I like it so much, I'm sorely tempted to get myself the standard version as well. Until then, I'll just appreciate this one and hope that REBOR will keep making such unique products. With companies like Myuu pushing them out of their old niche of creating affordable, unofficial movie models, finding ways to still stand out in an oversaturated market seems crucial for REBOR's future, and here, it definitely seems like they have. But as always, I want to know what you guys think of this figure. Do you own it yet? Are you planning to pick it up? And what oddity would you like to see from REBOR next? Drop a comment down below, and thank you again for tuning in to today's review. I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to check back in a day or so when we'll be concluding Killer Shrew Fan Spooktacular reviews on my favorite night of the year. Until then, take care out there, and goodbye.